Hello and welcome to the final set of question practice for crime and punishment. These are the how far do you agree questions, question 5, so the second option that you could choose from. Just like with before, make sure you get those time periods across the top to help you work out what you should be writing about. Annotate, make sure you pause the video, highlight, annotate the key parts of the question. Press play when you're ready to check your answers. So as always, you make sure you pick out the time period, 1750 to 1900. That is the industrial period. What topic is it? It's punishment. And what is the question? The most significant changes in the punishment of offenders took place in the industrial period. So it's basically saying the most important changes to punishment happen in the industrial period. So let's get ourselves a little agree and disagree table. So what changes happen in the industrial period? Well, you get the reduction in the number of hangings. You also get changes to and then decline of transportation. Now, for you disagree for this, you need to look at another time period and actually say, no, it wasn't the industrial period. This is when the most important changes happen. So I would say with this one, a really good one to look at is the 20th century, okay, for your disagree. So you could argue about the end of capital punishment. And you could also look at how it's all about reform and the increase of the prison sentence. So let's have a go at planning. Pause, plan, come back in a second. So, first point, we're going to agree. I'm going to do the reduction in hangings. You could talk about how the number of capital crimes is reduced. You could talk about actually the change into hanging so it becomes more humane. So new drop and long drop. And you need to explain here, why is this the most important change at the time? So why? It's a focus more on humane methods of punishment. Capital punishment has been the biggest punishment since the medieval period. So capital punishment changes, no longer a punishment for a wide range of crimes. Another thing that we could agree with, changes and decline of transportation. So in your development, you need to write about how transportation changes from the USA to Australia and how eventually transportation declines due to, for example, taxpayers' objections of Australians. Why is this such a significant change? Well, this is because this leads to, along with the reduction of hangings, the need to use prisons. Now, actually thinking about that, what might then be a nice one to do is move on to agree again and talk about the increase in the use of prisons. You can talk about the conditions in prisons and how the prisons were reformed. So reforms and changes to prisons. E.g., you've got John Fry and Elizabeth Howard. Why is this such a significant punishment? Well, this is when prison becomes the main type of punishment, and it starts to focus on reforming criminals rather than just totally getting rid of them. A disagree, I would go with the end of capital punishment. This ends in the 20th century, 1965 or 1969. So 1965 is when the law is introduced as a test for 5 years, but it becomes permanent in 1969. So the end of the death penalty. Why is this such a significant change? Well, capital punishment has been the most serious punishment since the Middle Ages. The abolishment of it is a complete change to all time periods. The abolishment is a complete change to all time periods from before. So I think with my conclusion for this one, what I would go for is that actually, yes, the most significant period is the industrial, as although significant changes occur in the 20th century, the changes to prisons in the industrial period influence the punishment changes in the 20th century. So the changes to prisons in industrial influences changes in the 20th century. Okay, we're getting there. Next question. Again, pause, highlight, annotate, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so again, time period. So it says since 1750. So that's industrial to 20th century. Topic, it's crime rates again. So that's how much crime there is. So how much crime. So it's similar to that question for question 4. How far do you agree this time that governments have been the most important factor influencing crime rates since 1750? Okay, this one's an interesting one because although it's about crime, you can, in your agree, actually write about the introduction of the police force, as that decreases the amount of crime. You could also agree in the 20th century, the government becomes involved in people's lives a lot more, and some of the changes and decisions that they make actually increase and decrease the crime rate. Disagree, technology, definitely in the 20th century, and we could also look at urbanisation in the industrial period. So, pause, plan your answer, come back and have a check. So, first point, we're going to agree, introduction of police force. That happens in 1829, created by Robert Peel, first official police force. And they are created by the government. Why does this make the government the most important factor? The creation of the police force helps to reduce the amount of crime, reducing the crime rate. Agree, 20th century, government involvement in people's lives. So, lots of crimes or lots of things are made crimes because they impact other people. Especially in the early modern period, you'd see lawmakers making things crime because they were worried about themselves. But the government actually makes things, law, makes things crimes because they're impacting a wide range of people. So you could talk about drug crime, or you could talk about race crime. Again, make sure you describe whichever of these examples you use. So, for example, the murder of Stephen Lawrence. Why is this the most important factor? Well, the government, like I said, is more involved in people's lives and make laws to protect people. Disagree. Let's talk about tech in the 20th century. So again, you can talk about cybercrime. You could talk about car crime. Once again, new technology. So why? New technology means there are new methods or types of crime emerging, which increases the crime rate. Another disagree could talk about urbanization in the industrial period. So lots of people moving to cities, huge increase in the number of factories and workplaces. Why does that have the most important influence on the crime rate? Well, there's more opportunities to steal from workplaces, and petty theft increases as a crowded city allows anonymity, making it easier to commit a crime, meaning the crime rate is going to go up. For this one, conclusion again, totally up to you, but I think I would go with disagree. Yes, the government does create some new crimes and do help to reduce the crime rate with the police force, but especially today, especially in the 20th century, the rise of technology means that the crime rate will change with the new technology. Technology as well can also be used by the police to help decrease the crime rate. So, final one, make sure you highlight, annotate, pause. I'll see you in a second. Okay. So again, time period tells you what it is. It's the industrial period. Now this one's very specific. It's not just law enforcement, crime, or punishment. It's actually talking about prisons. So it is punishment, but it's a very specific area of punishment. How far do you agree that the most significant reforms to prisons happened in the industrial period? So reforms means like positive changes. So again, let's get our little agree and disagree table. To agree for this, you can actually use the one we looked at before in the first question. So you've got changing role of prisons due to reduction in hangings and the end of transportation. Could also look at the work of reformers to improve the conditions of prisons that have been the same way for 700 years. Disagree could actually talk about the EMP and the introduction of bridewells. And the 20th century, it's the focus on reform of criminals. Now remember, you may have other points to me. That's absolutely fine. If you do want to send a picture of them to your teachers and get them checked out, don't worry, they won't mind at all. So last question. Pause, plan, come back to check your answers. We're going to start by agreeing, changing role of prison. Development, you're going to talk about how prison becomes the main form of punishment due to reduction of hangings and the end of transportation. You need to say, why is this the most significant reform? Well, we need to basically explain that for the first time in since the year 1250, prison becomes an actual punishment. So prisons used as punishment for the first time. Next point, we're going to agree again. We need to talk about the work of reformers. So make sure in here, in your development, you describe the work that John Fry does, the work that John Howard, and the work that Elizabeth Fry does. If you're unsure, make sure you go back to that industrial content video. Why is this such a significant reform? Well, for the first time, an effort is made to make prisons a safe and clean environment. Disagree? You could talk about bridewells in the early modern period. Don't forget to describe what bridewells are. So they're used to house vagrants. Why is this more important? Well, actually, this was the first step towards a prison system. Although it is just specifically to house vagrants and to make them work hard, this is when like enclosing people in a space like a prison is used for the first time. Another disagree. Let's go with 20th century and reform. So in the 20th century in prisons, useful work, prisoners can complete courses. Why is this such a significant change? Again, the purpose of prisons changes. The focus is to improve prisoners' lives so they do not reoffend. prior to this, prison was meant to be a punishment. Yes, prison is meant to be a punishment, but it was meant to be a punishment that would deter. This is meant to be a punishment so people can change and change their lives when they get out again. So for the conclusion, I think, with this one, you're going to have to go with agree. And I would agree on the fact that, yes, despite there have been changes, despite there being changes in other time periods, prison is first used as a punishment for a range of crimes in the industrial period. I can't put it on. Range of crimes in the industrial period. I hope you found these useful. Again, if you do want to write any of them out, do feel free to send them over to your teachers. Might be a good time now to get yourself logged in to Quizizz, either on the app or you can scan the QR code. It'll be in the big Year 11 revision class. You will see that there are a number of quizzes assigned to you, one for each of the different topics. Have a go at them. You'll be playing against the rest of the year, so that should be fun. And yeah, if you're feeling nice and confident and you've done them, brilliant. Maybe play it a couple more times if you don't get full marks. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the Skipton videos.